Hi, everybody, and thank you, Katie, for that lovely introduction. And yeah, that song of Anthony's "The Great Awakening" is, I heard that first about 10 years ago, and it's one that's really touched my heart and wanted me to, actually, it inspired me to go on a bit of a search for what is the Great Awakening? What is this thing that's happening? And I think if you look around right now, we can all see exactly what that is. So the theme this month is playing in the zone, free and unrestricted. And when Katie first asked me to speak, I thought, what is that? What am I going to speak on? And then what popped into my head as I sat with it in meditation was my white stone. And at this year's white stone ceremony, the very first Sunday that we have in January, we get our word for the year. And the word that I received in the ceremony was sovereign. And at the time I thought, wow, I don't really understand what this word is. I had some preconceived notions and I didn't frankly really like the word. It seemed kind of cold and hard. And yet there was something about it that was kind of curious. So you might remember that the last time I spoke was January 26th, and I was speaking. It's a day that's really cemented in my memory. I will tell you why in a moment. But on that day, I was speaking about how we relate to the mystery of life. What do we do? How do we be when life shows up in ways that we're not expecting? Well, I got my own experience of that. It's a whole long story, which I don't have time to share now. I will at some point because there's so much learning that's involved in it. But there's one particular part that's really relevant for my talk today. And that is that I had a moment, literally, of facing death. I was laying on the road in Kensington in the dark. I had lost consciousness for a minute. I had looked up to see that there was a car coming. The light had turned green and a car was heading towards me. And I literally had a moment of thinking that this was the end for me. Like I thought, oh my God, is this how this ends? Really? Like, are you kidding? And I had this moment of truly facing death. And let me tell you, if you haven't had that moment, it's a wake-up moment. It is definitely a spiritually, physically wake-up moment. And so I ended up in the hospital with my broken arm, and that moment really set, like, it just, there's something that was ignited within me in that facing of death. In part, it was a real important, beautiful recognition of the beauty of life. It's always that polarity, right? Life and death. And what I realized is that this idea of sovereignty within ourselves is so important to living life fully free, playing in the zone, free and unrestricted, right? Then we had the lockdown, the virus and the lockdown, and I had a lot of time for reflecting about this and thinking about this and watching what was going on around me. And I'll say a little bit of a caveat at this point, and I will say that I might be saying some things today that are rather provocative. And if it triggers something in you, I invite you to just allow yourself to be in the energy of curiosity. Because as I have been exploring this, I have to say it's been quite the journey for me as well, to get my heart and my mind wrapped around what this means. So what sovereignty means at its core, at its base, is being internally referenced. It's being the ruler of our internal kingdom. And when we are the ruler of our internal kingdom, then we will be able to conduct our lives in a way that allows us to express the fullness of who we are. When we don't have that internal sovereignty, then we are very vulnerable to having outside forces manipulate us, take away our joy, cause us to be in ways and places that don't necessarily resonate with the truth of who we are. So you might think sovereignty means, well, that just means we can do whatever we want and we can, create havoc. Not exactly, because we are still subject to natural law and spiritual law, which means that yes, we can break the rules, we can do what we want, but not without consequences. And what I've seen and what I've discovered is that the more we move to this place of internal sovereignty within ourselves, this clarity between our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, and our words, we become much more conscious and aware and caring of other people. We develop really strong boundaries, which allows us to have really clear, healthy relationships with others and within community. So let me tell you what else I learned about sovereignty. I learned what sovereignty is not. You might remember, I've talked about this a lot. This seems to be one of my core messages because I keep coming back to it over and over again. And that is about being aware of our state of being. And our state of being, there really only is fundamentally two states of being. One is love and one is fear. And when we are in a state of fear, we lose, our consciousness falls and we contract. That's what fear does. It takes our consciousness down. It causes us to contract. We lose our ability to discern truth. We lose our awareness. Our awareness becomes very narrow. We lose that perspective. It causes our immune system to go down. It disconnects us within. We lose that alignment between our head, our heart, our body, mind, and spirit. It causes us to move into a state of being just in that mental zone. And if you've ever been there, as we all have, we know that that is the zone that can easily take us down, right? That's where our thoughts and the fears can run wild and cause us further suffering and further pain. When we're in this state of fear, we have a constant level of anxiety running through our bodies. And we're very vulnerable to abandon ourselves. It's very easy in this state of fear to abandon ourselves, to abandon what's important to us, to abandon our own truth. And our biggest fear that we all have, they say it's speaking in public. I don't believe that. I think the biggest fear that we all have is death. That fear of death. And in part, that's because in our society, we've been so divorced from death. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. So in that state of fear, and remember, I've said this before and I'll say it again because it's really important to understand, I'm not talking about feeling fear. If there's a feeling of fear in your body, then we can allow that fear, feel the fear, and release it. If we don't allow ourselves to feel the fear, we can push it down, we can keep it in our bodies, we can create disease and suffering in our bodies. We can then create that state of being of fear. Right? So I'm not saying don't feel your feelings. Feeling our feelings is one of the most important things for staying connected and staying in that place of sovereignty within. So let's look at the other side. So that's the fear side, which clearly is not about being sovereign and ruling ourselves. That's when we give our power away to others to determine our life, to determine our truth. The other state of being, which is what we aspire to, and which is actually our true state of being, is that of being in love. For when we are in the state of being of love, we are in consciousness. We are in a place of expanded awareness and perception. We can see much more of the wholeness of what's going on around us rather than in fear in the individual small bits, the small perspective. When we are in a state of love, we are deeply connected within. We are deeply connected to our body. We are deeply connected to our mind, to our hearts, to our soul, and indeed to all of life. We are not only connected, but we are in harmony within all of that. We are in harmony within ourselves. We are in harmony with all of life. Being in this state of love also allows us to be more healthy. It boosts our immune system. So this state of sovereignty is fully in alignment in being in the state of being of love, in the consciousness of love. Without it, I don't think, I don't know which way it is, which is the chicken, which is the egg. I think being in that state of sovereignty is an indication of being in the state of being in love. And moving ourselves to that state of being is what creates the sovereignty. It's a feedback loop between those two things. So, in this sovereign state within us, that's when we are able to live free and unrestricted, playing in the zone of life. For that is what we are here to do. We are here to live. And if we spend our life being afraid of death, which I have to say, I understand this. I've been there. I've done that. I for many, many years lived from a place of survival where I wasn't able to really enjoy life. I was just trying to stay alive. That's when I was living in the state of fear. And I love this quote from Florence Nightingale. She says, "How very little can be done under the spirit of fear." And it's so true. And so what I realized is that sovereignty is the key to living in love. Sovereignty, living from that state of connectedness within, is, I think, the same as unity consciousness. That is what we are working towards. I think that sovereignty within is the key to the 12 powers. It's what gives the 12 powers their power. For we become in alignment, connected to life. When we're not sovereign, we give our power away to others. All right, that makes me cough. That makes me have trouble breathing. Just that thought. All right. It is the key to bringing who we are and bringing our truth into the world, to bring our divine self into this physical realm, which is what we're here to do. We're here to expand consciousness by being who we are, by bringing all of who we are into this physical plane. And it's the key to conscious co-creation. We're always co-creating, but the question is, are we co-creating from a conscious place or an unconscious place? Our founders, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, understood this. I looked to see if I could find any reference to them using that word, and I couldn't find it. I didn't see it, and maybe the idea of it has changed slightly, but even if you equate it with unity consciousness, they understood the power of this in healing. Myrtle Fillmore healed herself of tuberculosis, which was unheard of. And Charles made his leg grow. Impossible, right? Well, it's not, because it happened. It's true. And having this level of sovereignty and this connection with our spirit is what creates that knowingness of life. And I look around at what's happening right now, and I see that there is a tremendous effort to get us to move to the state of fear and to keep us in a state of fear. And that concerns me because of what then that happens to each of us individually and what happens to us collectively. So what do we do with this? What do we do with this information? How do we get to this place of sovereignty? Well, number one, I would say, is to become aware of where you are. Are you living in a state of being of fear or love? If you are in fear, do what you need to do to move yourself back into that love state of being. Perhaps it's going out and being with nature. Perhaps it's doing some inspiring reading, listening to inspiring music. I will tell you one thing you can do is you can turn off the news. The news truly is nothing more than somebody's agenda of what they want you to know and what they want you to believe is true. It's not necessarily truth. We need to discern what is true within ourselves, and being in that place of sovereignty and unity consciousness is what allows us to do that. The second thing is to heal our relationship with death. Birth and death are two sides of the same coin. We celebrate birth coming into this realm, this physical realm. And what I know to be true is that when we die, our physical form is what dies, but the energy, which cannot be created or destroyed, the energy of who we are, then is birthed into a new place. What is that new place? I don't know. We all get to find that out at some point, because it is the only way out. And what I've found too is that those who live with purpose and passion are not afraid to die. The people who are afraid to die are those who are stuck in fear. Those who have a deep knowing that they haven't yet been able to live their truth, the truth of who they are, to bring to the world the gifts that they've come here to bring. So I've got a really short video clip that captures this so beautifully that I'd love to show right now.
The danger that we have right now is not a virus. The danger that we have right now is that we have sterilized ourselves from death. We have created sterility around the death moment, which is ultimately our reason we're here. We are here for a transformative experience where we find out we are not biologic, we are spiritual beings. We are light beings. We are spiritual beings trapped in a biologic shell for a moment. And we have learned to fear all of that. And for that, we are missing the beauty of life. We are missing the beauty of the face of our lovers, of the face of our children. We are missing the beauty of one another. And we are letting each other die alone out of fear of some genetic material that floats through the air and has since the beginning of time. We have the wrong story going on. And it is not a conspiracy theory. It is not some government laboratory. It is the human emotion of fear. And we are afraid of our own death, which is our rebirth. We need to reorient ourselves to life. We need to put into line not just our medical system. We need to put into line our manufacturing and consumer goods industries. We need to put into line our energy and transportation industries in line with biology. It has shown us how to produce energy cleanly. It has shown us how energy is produced at the cellular level. We could do that. We could put all of it back in line. And first and foremost, we need to celebrate life and stop fearing death. And we will act much differently towards each other. We don't need a revolution. We need an evolution. We need to evolve past our fear. And we need to find love. And love is not a thing. It's not something to be grabbed. It is an experience. And I believe it is, through the wisdom of one of my deep friends, Patrick Gentempo, gave me this extraordinary gift last year. Love is not the fabric of everything. The fabric of everything is beauty. And our reaction to seeing the beauty is love.
Yes, indeed. And in facing death, embracing life, the other thing that we can do, which is so very important, and this is the spiritual journey, is to heal the fragmented parts of our own selves. We come in as wholeness, and the experiences and the traumas that we have is what creates a fragmented self within. It's that place where I see it all the time. Every client that I've ever sat with has had this, I want to do this, but I'm afraid to do this. I want that, and I don't want that. There's this internal fight that goes on within us. And it is this internal fight that creates our shadow. It creates it's like driving with the gas pedal and the brakes on at the same time. You don't go anywhere. You get stuck, right? So heal those internal fragments. Heal those wounds. Be brave and willing to sit with and to feel, for that is the way that we heal. So whether that's through a counselor, a healer, your own process, journaling, whatever it is that works for you, to ask your higher self to bring it to your awareness, what needs to be healed in order for you to move to that place of sovereignty and unity consciousness. Right now, we are not experiencing freedom. Our freedoms have been curtailed. We are being told who we can talk to, who we can hug, who we can touch, and who we can't. We're being made to be fearful of each other. And we are social creatures, and the ability for us to live fully depends on our ability to interact in these social situations, to have each other, to have spiritual community. That's what we need to take a stand for love, to take a stand for the spiritual selves, to stop this movement towards dehumanizing us and taking away our spirituality. Nobody can do that. Only we can consent to that. But we need to be aware of what's going on. So with all this said, playing in the zone, free and unrestricted, I want to take us into a meditation, but the meditation is going to be very different from what I normally do. For this meditation, I'm going to invite you to meet death. And I want you to, or invite you, if you so choose, to go on this journey with me in this meditation, to just see what the resistance is that comes up for you, because that'll be really important information for you to grow your spiritual self as you move forward.